Welcome to Channel Security Secrets. I'm Lou Raban. On this show, we expose the untold secrets and critical insights from the people shaping the future of cybersecurity sales in the Trusted Advisor channel. If you're looking to up your game around selling security, stick around. Channel Security Secrets is brought to you by Cyber Defense Group, on a mission to shift cybersecurity from reactive to resilient. I cannot wait to welcome today's guest. He's an entrepreneur, speaker, cybersecurity leader with over 20 years experience. He's founded and scaled two high-growth tech companies and led organizations from startups, early-stage startups, to high-growth firms. He's currently serving as the president of the Northern Ohio InfraGard Members Alliance, and he partners with the FBI to advance security and resilience. Please welcome the president at AgileBlue, Tony Pietrocola. Welcome to the show.
Lou, thanks for having me, and you got the last name pegged, so I appreciate it.
Boom, my fellow Italian brother.
Pardon.
So Tony, let's just start it off big. What's the biggest secret to your success in the channel?
If I had to choose something that's really important, I would say you have to obsess over your customers. That's not mine. I learned that from reading something from Jeff Bezos back in like 2000. But I think in the channel, Lou, if you obsess over your customers, and that is the thing, I don't see how you can't be successful. I think if you don't, that's where things start falling apart, because not only your reputation, but the reputation of your partners obviously can be affected. I think if you obsess over your customers, everything can take care of them itself.
So customer obsession, how are you doing that? How does AgileBlue accomplish that?
We're in security, right? So ours is maybe a tad different, although does it really matter across the board? But number one, our customers need to know 24/7 that everybody at AgileBlue is tirelessly working to make sure they're not hacked, right? That's a big deal. They need to know whether it's 2 a.m. or 2 p.m., things are going right. So I think that amount of trust, and trust only comes with what they see, not how, words look on our proposal. I would just say this, and again, this applies to any business. You got to have great people, superlative people. Everybody always hears, the A players. Okay, what's an A player? What's a B player? But just great people, right? Great people who work hard, know their craft, care. I don't care what business you're in, whether you're in a restaurant or whether you're in cybersecurity. I think that's a pretty critical element to making sure those customers know you're really thinking about them.
Yeah, I always admire. It's funny you say that, because going into businesses, that I always it doesn't matter what kind of business it is. If it's well run, it's got good staff, they concentrate on customer experiences. A restaurant around here, Pasadena, that just is consistently good all the time. And it's I know what I'm gonna get when I got people out of town. I bring them there because I know the food's gonna be good. It's not cheap, but you get what you pay for, right? So yeah, customer obsession, and one of the ways to do that is to hire good staff. So bringing it back to the channel and TAs, how would you suggest if they are trying to get into security? Because I think security is new to the channel, right? Relatively, yeah, it's been around for a long time, the channel, but security is kind of in the last couple of years just started to gain traction. What do you tell TAs? How do you talk to them if they want to get into security, but they haven't sold it before?
You know what, Lou? I'll answer, but I'd also like to hear from you, because I think you're probably going to have a tremendous perspective. I was having breakfast last week with a top person at Teleris, and they said something interesting. I asked the same question. I'm like, why are more TAs not jumping in with cyber? And he said, it really comes down to one thing, and it probably comes back to what I said. You obsess over customers, but TAs have spent their whole lives building their business on trust. Their customers know what they need, trust them. If they go in with cyber and the TA itself doesn't understand cyber tremendously, can't answer all their questions, they literally believe it's going to put them at a disadvantage, and maybe make them look maybe not as high level as they are known for whatever they do. And I think that's wrong. I think you can go in and say, hey, cyber is where everything's going. Everything we do for you has got to be wrapped around security. Look, I am not an expert when it comes to this, but we have some great people behind us. Let's start the discussion. What are you using for X? What are you doing for Y? And let's start the discussion and then bring in experts. Like nobody expects a one-man show. Nobody just wants Paul McCartney. I think everybody just wants the Beatles, right? We definitely want balance. So I'd like to hear from you and what you're seeing the same thing. I think they just need to get started and know they got backup from their partners and from the TSDs.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we tell them. I mean, I think fear has a lot to do with it, right? Like something they haven't sold before. Cyber can be a black box. There's, a billion talking heads out there now that pretend to be experts and, maybe 0.01% actually are. And so, there's an element of intimidation, I think, where it's like, hey, if I open my mouth about this, they're going to start asking questions and I don't know the answers out of my depth. So it's easier to sell the stuff that they've been selling. But to your point, we say, hey, that's the time to say, bring in the experts. You're not expected to know. Cyber is a complicated topic. It can be overwhelming. And the customers shouldn't expect the trusted advisors to be the experts necessarily. They should expect them to be able to get the answers from the experts. So I think being comfortable saying, I don't know, but I got a guy. That's the way Stefan Samorov has explained it to me. I got a guy. That's where the TA should go with that.
Yeah, I totally agree, and the ones we've seen be successful have taken down that barrier, and they've charged forward with it, and they're doing
Yeah.
great. And some of the other ones, they just need to probably take that leap.
Yeah, and we also see that it's difficult for them when you've got a complicated, not complicated, but a cyber sale where you're speaking maybe to a part of the organization that you haven't spoken before, because maybe now you're going from the IT area to if they have a separate security area, if it's a big enough company, then different set of people, different set of stakeholders. Sometimes they're getting to the C-suite, and they might have been speaking to a couple lower levels prior. It's an uncomfortable area for them, and it's less sometimes the dollar amounts are a little bit lower. Like if you're selling bandwidth, if you're selling data centers, there might be a couple more zeros, and it might be an easier sale. But to your point, back to trust, and really doing customer obsession, the way that we describe it, it's like you're going to get much closer to your customer because you're going to get exposure to everything because cyber has to have a view of the entire organization, right? And in doing that, you'll be able to hear other opportunities that might lead to those bigger sales potentially. But what you're doing is creating trust and stickiness with the customer, and that's where we try to push them.
I would agree, and I would also say this, when it comes down to dollars and cents, the revenue in cyber, I think the margins in cyber are pretty darn good. So
Yeah.
that's help the TA help their customer. It's gonna help the TA grow his or her business, which, like, we're all capitalists here. That's the whole right?
100%. That's why we're here. I mean, we wanna help people, and we also, wanna make money doing it and hopefully have some fun as well. So with the, TA that's a non-practitioner, do you have any advice for them, to kinda open that conversation other than saying, "Hey, I know someone, I got a guy." Is there a way for them to kind of open that conversation even if they're not comfortable with cyber yet?
I think it's that real easy question of, hey, when it comes to cybersecurity, is that keeping you up at night? And
Mhm.
look, question, I really do. I hate when people ask me like, what keeps you up at night? To me, it's an upset customer. It's not necessarily a
Okay.
cyber upset customer, but if a TA who is not extraordinarily well cyber secure verse and doesn't want to dive into, hey, what are you doing for cloud security or fire, all that stuff,
Mhm.
up at night from a cyber perspective, do you think about, either being hacked for data, ransomware? Do you fear business disruption? I would think every customer would say, yeah, yeah, and absolutely, right? So
Mhm.
it starts the conversation going. And look, if people are saying, hey, we know you've moved to the cloud, do you think the cloud is completely protected? Do you understand it's a shared responsibility between you and Amazon, Microsoft? I think those questions for intelligent TAs are very simple. You don't need to be extraordinarily technical to ask if they really understand their business can't be disrupted or can't be hacked. I think it's a great way to dive in. And then if somebody goes, we have been thinking about security operations, or we've been thinking about having somebody, being able to respond 24/7, or look, man, we need help at 365. All of a sudden, the TA can then hear those key words and now say, hey, great, look, I'm not going to answer all your questions, but I got someone we work with. They're an expert in this. Let's set up a 20-minute call and kind of dive in. I don't see where that conversation puts anybody in a bad light. And especially saying, hey, I've worked with someone I trust. I'm a trusted advisor. I trust this person. You trust me. Let's put this conversation together. It seems to me to be pretty simple to start the conversation.
Yeah, and what about sales cycles? Do you find that are they longer, shorter with security? Is it variable?
I guess I don't have anything to pin it to. I will say this: we've seen sales cycles in security be right around 90 days or so. Even when, back in February, March, when tariffs got a little, wonky and people didn't know what the heck was going on, we saw it maybe go up to 94, 96. But right now we're seeing it right back at that 90. And that's pretty typical what we see in what we sell in terms of security and SaaS in security. I think that's great. What are you seeing? And I'd ask you also from a consultative advisory perspective, are you seeing 90? Are you seeing it expand a little bit?
Yeah, it's listen, I mean, probably 2 years ago, even maybe last year, sometimes it was 180 plus, which was, really painful. Sales cycles have definitely compressed. I think the market's finally getting educated about what they need. I mean, we've gone through multiple cycles, right? Of selling and buying cybersecurity in the market. In the beginning, just no one knew anything, and everyone was looking for the silver bullet, etc. In the middle, it was, now we understand that we need certain components, but they were outsourcing things maybe that they shouldn't have, or they were insourcing things they should have outsourced, stuff like that. Maybe buying the wrong vendors again. And then finally, now we're seeing the more sophisticated buyers, they understand that's our model, at Cyber Defense Group that I run, and it's to get people in to a program basically, not just try to plug the holes with your fingers, but have a strategy on plugging the holes and making sure the ship doesn't sink. But so the sales cycles have elongated, but now I think they are coming back, and sometimes it's an investment, like anything. We might speak, and to your point, when the TA reaches out and says, "Hey, I've got someone," and they might get you on the call, your team or my team. What they're going to do is that we'll speak to that customer and they might not be ready. It might be a 6 month, it might even be a 12-month down the line kind of project. So obviously we want the ones that are like, hey, we're ready to buy today. And sales cycles like 5 days. That's usually incident response, and that's a whole nother thing. But typical sales cycles, they might be 45 to 90 days if it's a decently quick sale. But sometimes we're just putting in the time to educate. And that's what we find is if we invest and educate, and those are the TAs we like to work with too, that have a long-term view, that want to have take a journey with the customer and with us rather than just trying to get the quick win and get free quotes. So I think there's, yeah, definitely something there where investing in that is important. So TAs just need to reach out essentially.
You mentioned a key word. The word was investment. It's funny, like when it comes to cyber, some folks are like, is that something we need? Is that something that's a must? Is if your business can't be disrupted or your data or your customers' data stolen, I don't see that as a nice to have. I can't see how that's not a critical to have in this day and age. I really can't. But some of that's education. Some of it is, I understand it's an expense, but it's really an investment in keeping your business operating. Like that,
Big
that's
time.
is really got to be the mindset.
Yeah, listen, having a cybersecurity plan and program is basically table stakes, the cost of doing business today. It's no longer, optional. It's funny because I'm old enough to remember when people were like, "Hey, we're not Fort Knox." This is like 20 years ago, and literally, they really could. I didn't have an argument for that because they weren't a target. All the threats were not as prevalent. We're talking like late 90s, early aughts, right? And they could go back to paper because guess what? Everybody was still using faxes and paper. So if they're the one computer in the office out of 10 employees went down or whatever, they could continue. But these days, who's not using the internet, who's not using technology. Everything we do is wrapped around technology, and the more efficient and better we are at stuff, the more technology we have. So to your point, that goes down, productivity stops. And you've been part of incident responses. I've been leading these things. It's a disaster, but we try to, to the investment conversation, we really try to steer towards ROI, because when we speak about, the sky is falling, all these hackers in hoodies, people are fatigued. They've got breach fatigue. You if you go down that road, and that's another real tip for, any TAs that are trying to sell security, I would stay away from the doom and gloom scenarios, other than saying, "Hey, there's a cost here if you don't do something." But concentrating on it and using that as a tactic, I think, is getting, it's not getting the traction it needs, because people are saying, you go down that road, they're like, "Well, listen, everyone's been hacked." So these huge companies are spending, hundreds of millions of dollars on security. So why, that means it's inevitable, and you can kind of get like a defeatist attitude there. So I like, positioning it as an investment. There's an ROI. You invest in security today, you're not going to have a loss of productivity down the road and a loss of customers, etc. We've even released a whole, security budget sheet, that what is the true cost of a breach. That's kind of stuff that companies need to look at.
Yeah, I think we're all tired of presentations starting with, you know, here's how big ransomware is. Here's how many people are getting hacked by the day. Oh, look, someone just got hacked just now. Don't let this be you. Like, look, we all know that. Like
Exactly.
that's not table stakes. That is dead stakes. We all know that. Now, here's what we do and how we can help you avoid X, Y, and Z. That's the proactive discussion. These people are smart enough to understand no one wants to be hacked. It's 2025. We all understand this, right? This isn't 2005. That fear also makes people think, look, do they really have something to sell? Or are they just, preying on my fears? So let's talk about the solution that's going to stop, I don't know, ransomware or an AI attack or a deep fake. That's what people are thinking. Specific solutions. How can you help me?
Yeah. So AgileBlue is one piece of that puzzle. How are you helping TAs when they come to you and they say, "Okay, we MDR, you're doing, managed detection and response." How, when TAs engage with you, what is the best way for them to kind of engage with you? How are you positioning yourself in kind of the whole security stack, etc.?
There's two big angles for us that do security operations and MDR, managed detection and response, as part of security ops, or another acronym, SecOps, right? There's so many acronyms.
Yep.
For one is when they're trying to show their customers, who are generally mid-market, maybe they're smaller enterprise, but they're generally in that mid-market. Do you have a 24/7 team? And the answer is invariably, we don't, right? They might go maybe a little later in the day, but they generally don't have a 24/7 team. So they're looking for someone to bring in the technology and the 24/7 team to not just monitor and detect, but obviously respond, whether that's 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. Someone's got to do something to make sure you're not getting hacked. That's number one, which is one of the fastest growing pieces within the cybersecurity stack. And then number two, look, I still believe, regardless of the economic conditions, which we think are pretty good and we're seeing being pretty good, it's vendor consolidation, right? Do you think the average mid-market, this is according to Gartner, mid-market companies got 8 to 12 vendors, and small enterprise up could be 12 to 20. Do you really have the ability to manage these vendors? Is all the tools integrated, or are they siloed? And the data is not even being shared to correlate the data into protection. So in our platform, we have 8 modules that definitely allows these enterprises or these mid-sized businesses to consolidate vendors. If they're going to go with us, maybe we could take the place of 4, 5, 6, up to 8 vendors, one platform. I like to say one back to tap. Some people will say choke, whatever. I'm going to go on the proactive side, but that helps them do 2 things, not just manage less vendors. It does help them bring their costs down. Even though it's an investment, still not cheap. Nobody is in cybersecurity because it's a cheap, place to be, but it does help them bring their costs down. There's zero doubt about that. So those are really 2 big spots where TAs can start ring in the ears of their prospects in terms of what's going to help them answer that email, return that phone call, whatever it may be.
So someone has a TA gets an inbound lead that says, "Hey, we need security." Would they be able to come to you and say you could start that conversation at least, even if they don't have, the customer might have an existing, or to your point, kind of a suite of tools, but maybe they just lost their head of security. Maybe they're looking to go in another direction. Maybe they're downsizing and they're like, "Hey, and we need to save some money." Those are all good reasons to reach out to you? Yeah.
Absolutely. And or they're moving from data center on-prem into the cloud, or maybe they're hybrid and now totally moving into the cloud. So their security posture, which basically people put up endpoints and a firewall and be like, we're good. Now, and since remote work became such a, well, it's everything, and people are everything's in the cloud and remote. You have now 5,000 offices, not just two. Now your security thoughts have changed. So it's not even do you have cybersecurity? It's your business has changed. The cybersecurity's now changed. Do you have the tools you think you need for the way that, business is now operating? And I don't think a lot of people would say 100% absolutely. I think that's also a great starter of the conversation. Remote works here. We're a remote company now. How do we think about security?
And are there any industries specifically that you're seeing more uptake? Obviously, healthcare and finance have always been the top two for regulatory reasons and et cetera. Finance, especially because there's a very obvious cost. They break in, money is lost immediately. So, what about any other industries that you're seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing two things. Number one, any organization that's selling to the federal government with the new CMMC stuff that needs to be adhered to here at the end of this year, and then level two at the end of next, or however they're looking at their CMMC. If they want to continue to do business with the federal government, they got to do better themselves because they're not going to be the weak chain or the weak link in the chain with the government supply chain. So we're seeing a lot of activity there. And then, as you can imagine, we do a lot of critical infrastructure work, things like airports, things like that. That obviously is also within a lot of folks reevaluating. State and local governments have been hit hard. They're starting to pay more attention, and the federal government started under Biden, continued through Trump. They're putting money from the federal level into these state local governments to help solidify them. So that's where we're seeing a lot of growth in the security operations space.
How about manufacturing? Have you noticed?
Yeah, I think comes at it from a different angle too, right? There's less of what we're going to steal, so to speak, more about disrupting the entire manufacturing process. So
Yeah.
and it's generally that next level manufacturer, the people doing things with more robotics and software and things like that than it is maybe your typical, I don't know, CNC shop or something like that, right? And those manufacturers that are really creating high level components and things, absolutely. Are you seeing that as well? Since you brought it up, I am immediately.
Yeah, yeah, lots of manufacturing, and not only because, yeah, there's the IoT and the OT side, but there's also legacy. You've got, some of these machines are, very, very expensive. So, the machines to manufacture whatever it might be, plastics or metal or et cetera. So when you're looking at that, those might be 20 years old. They might be running on an operating system that's no longer supported by Microsoft, or not patched for like 5 or 10 years. So, but they're not just going to scrap it and get a new one. It's not like an iPhone. You really have to like invest in that. It's a capital investment. It's super expensive and it's big and heavy. Just to move it around costs a lot of money. So therefore, you've got to put the proper segmentation, et cetera, in place. And that's where the strategy comes together, where what you're doing as Agile Blue, that's the technology and some of the process part. You do provide the people too. We're definitely providing the people in the process part. So to kind of attack that, and so manufacturing for sure is up and coming, I think, and will continue to gain traction as cybersecurity consumer.
I think so. And also, when you look at manufacturing, in my opinion, only second to healthcare has been more investment hesitant as a
Yeah.
about any industry. So, and look, a lot of manufacturing process now are run by software. Where in the past it necessarily was run by humans. It's
Mhm.
hard human. It's really easy to disrupt software.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's, tech and security debt in a lot of industries, but as we mentioned earlier on the show, no one is immune. No one can pretty much just not invest in security. Obviously, education. You were talking about SLED, so that's part of the that stuff. But yeah, especially I think education is really sad because they're already dealing with low dollars. They don't have enough money to do the things that they want to do, and now they've got to invest in cyber. And there's a lot of companies that are vendors that might take advantage of them because they have some grant money and things like that. So it's definitely still the Wild West. I feel like we're not embryonic anymore in security, but we're like maybe we're definitely not at toddler stage either. We're kind of baby stage.
Yeah, we are on the defense, but the offensive guys seem to be a little bit more mature than us, don't they?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's where the fun is too. But offense. You don't always have to be right. You can try a couple things, but defense, you got to be right all the time. Otherwise, that's when the bad stuff happens. So definitely more challenging. Speaking of challenges, what's a challenge that you and your team have tried to solve or had to solve recently?
Um, I think a big challenge for us is in this industry. I'll speak again very selfishly. As a business owner, I'm sure you see this is maintaining and retaining your top talent. Look, at the end of our team is made up of cyber experts and professionals like you. We have a lot of AI engineers as well because we build an AI based platform. Everything I just mentioned is extremely in demand. And because of remote work, you can live in Cleveland, Ohio, where we're headquartered, and still Google or Facebook or whomever can come drop a lot of money on you and you can work for them. And obviously, they're out of California. So at the end of the day, I think retention of your top people or just say your entire team is a big challenge. As the
Mm,
pre I worry about my customers, of course. I worry about our sales, of course. I worry about everything. But those areas take care of themselves, in my opinion. Retention of your top people, it could become a battle. And we've had tremendous knock on this fake wood desk I'm standing by right now. We've had tremendous retention in our 5.5 year history. But things are getting crazy out there, right? People need AI, they need cyber, they're throwing dollars around. So we really try to work hard. I think it's one of our biggest challenges, making sure our people are super happy, see what we're building here and see that their careers are developing and growing in a great company. That's tell me about you. I would think, and you're in California, so you'd
yeah.
probably see of that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was really challenging about like COVID, around the COVID, even pre-COVID, like 2018, 2019, the salaries that people were, demanding, really you could be completely useless as a resource, but demand these, absolutely like $250,000 plus salaries, and then expect everything like lunch every day and stuff like that, if you were in an office, etc. So, at one point, I was so clueless. I look back at the mistakes that I've made. One of them was I don't know if it was a mistake, but at that time we actually had someone dedicated to culture. Like we had one person that was an HR person, but also did culture. Now that's a complete luxury, but in that market, we felt that I thought it was necessary. Looking back, I could have done without that. There were other things I could have done, but being a new business owner and being in a really super hyper competitive environment for talent, that was challenging. Now, I've learned, to your point, there's certain things that you do. You provide, an environment to grow. You find talent that's in it not just for the money, but that has passion. If someone's like, "Okay, how much am I gonna get?" And I've got an offer that's, whatever, 2% higher than this one. It's like, go if that's what's most important to you, then go take the other 2% or whatever, even if it's 10%, because what we're providing and what, obviously you're providing, if you have high retention, especially, it means that it's a good place to work. It's a place that's challenging intellectually, but people can grow, they can develop, they can rise through, whatever career path they have, and we help them with that. So we've been lucky. We've got some really really good resources, but it's been a challenge. There's been some that have been many that have been through. When I look at HR system, and I look at former employees, and I look at the list, I'm like, oh my gosh, we've gone through a lot, and that's just lessons. So now the team we have, it's taken almost 10 years to get the right mix of people. And so if I were to do this again, that timeline would be compressed, but holding on to good talent, yeah, and finding good talent, challenging.
Challenging. And by the way, if you want to obsess over customers, one of the easiest ways the customer sees and talks to the same people every day. If they start seeing too much turnover, all of a sudden they're like, what's going on at this company, right? You might have a
Yeah.
great, but why do you have so many people in and out? So that becomes a challenge. And, look, I think every company in America is probably facing this right now. It's not just you and I, or not just cyber or AI. I think everybody is. I think the labor force is good, right? I mean, unemployment is low, economy's pretty solid. We got a lot of great stuff going on. I think it's just going to be a battle for people.
Yeah, yeah. Although it has gotten easy, in cyber right now. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there are a lot of people that are looking for work. But I think what's happening too is AI is the great filter in some ways, because now there's people that used to be hired, and they were doing the job that AI can do. And I'm not saying that it's junior, or what level they are. I think a lot of people have phoned in their jobs. Let's be really clear, and especially with cyber, you could hide. You could have maybe done some good stuff earlier in your career. That's the thing that I've made the mistake of, and I'm sure you've done that too in the beginning. Is you see these big logos, and you're like, whoa, you work for all these great companies, you're hired, and you're like, whoa, you don't actually do anything. So those people are definitely out of a job right now, because anything that they might have, like, oh, well, that guy's kind of useless, but at least he knows about X. Now, X being like some ancient technology or whatever. Now you can just go to AI and say, hey, how do you do this? Okay, we don't need that guy anymore. But then also, I think with AI and with people looking, it's just been, companies are leveraging AI for a lot of those more junior positions, but there is a play for people still looking for a job. So I mean, you're working with AI, and I'm really proud that it's taken us this long to even say AI, since everyone is talking about it constantly and putting it out there. So what does AI mean when you say AI? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, I'll say I'm going to bring it obviously down to AgileBlue. What we do with our AI is it's able to autonomously investigate, make a decision, and respond. And in cyber, we think both speed and accuracy stop cyber attacks, or at least mitigates that risk and damage, right? So if we can use AI to get out ahead of it, understand everything, make a decision, even if we're bringing in a human, then at the end, we're moving so much faster. So we've automated 90% on level two of what an analyst does. And here's the huge part: about 47% more efficient when responding to a cyber attack. So that definitely means faster, 98% accuracy. So has that reduced jobs at AgileBlue? No, we just are. Those folks are now working on more complex challenges, and we're bringing in more engineers to create more AI that does that. So to me, AI, it just means, and I am not one of these people who thinks AI is going to kill jobs. I just think people are going to need to how to understand how to use AI to do their job. And that's not a bad thing, because if it can make us better, we can work more. There's a paradox called Javin's paradox. And this guy said this back in the 1800s. Every time technology was created over the years, whether it was the railroad or the printing press, and obviously the internet and computers and now AI, people are like, oh, it's going to decimate this, it's going to kill jobs. No, it created more, because now we have more companies doing things, whether it's creating AI, supporting AI, building tools for AI. It's going to create more. Will it reduce old stuff? Yeah, potentially, but people will grow their careers, thus hopefully making more money as well. If AI makes us seriously more efficient, that's better margins. That obviously, if you understand financials, makes you a more profitable company. A way to invest more is to then obviously hire and grow your business. So I do think that I'm a big believer in the Jevons paradox. If you don't know what it is, look it up if you're listening to this, but I do believe it applies to AI, and that's what makes me extraordinarily bullish on AI. And both my daughters who are getting through college, they're looking at their careers, and one of them is an investment banker, and in her internship, which is she's in her final year, she's into her internship. They're not replacing investment bankers with AI. They're now using it. So now instead of leaving the office at midnight, maybe they leave at 10 p.m. and everybody has a little bit of a life outside of it.
Yeah, big time. I actually started investment banking, not as a banker, but as the IT guy supporting the trading floor. That's a story for another time. But yeah, those can be really brutal hours. So I love what you're saying about the AI augmentation. It's a tool, and to your point, yeah, the people that had horses were terrified of the car. Has the world crashed and burned since cars were invented? I mean, some people might say yes, but that's a whole nother from a petrol, oil, kind of thing. But literally, AI is really a force multiplier. And it's funny because I just posted something on LinkedIn about this. I'll send you the post. It's basically about Microsoft Research did a study, and they said, things that people like tech and stuff will be heavily affected by it, but that doesn't mean those jobs are going away. To your point, you just have to pivot and learn how to use the tools, and then you're going to be more productive. And then, yeah, absolutely, it's not necessarily something that you'll lose your job, but you're not going to have a job if you don't know how to use AI, essentially. That is yeah, a certainty. So, yes, and it's great. I'm really happy that we didn't start with AI. There's a lot of people, a lot of, consternation about AI. There's a lot of, it's just like NFCs and or NFTs and things out there. When Bitcoin and crypto came out, everyone became a crypto expert at one point. Um, and now everyone's an AI. I was at a TA conference. I forgot what it was, like Channel Partners in Vegas or something like 2 years ago, and no joke, this guy handed me a card about being an AI, expert, whatever it was. I looked him up later, it was like real estate, waiting tables, AI expert. I was like, because he could do that at the time, but now, hopefully, we're gonna get past this hype cycle of AI, and this is the real, the straight dope about AI. It's a tool. We're gonna use it, and your AgileBlue is using it to great effect.
Yeah, it is a tool. Now, I think it's an extraordinarily powerful tool, one that we've maybe never seen. But if you think that it's just going to be, I really don't believe it's all AI just running everything all day long. Now, if we get there, maybe it's way down the road and maybe I'm dead by then and Elon Musk robots are ruling the world. I don't care. I won't be around, I guess. But right now, it is a force multiplier. It's doing the mundane work that we don't want to do anyways. And now, as professionals, we can focus on more challenging tasks and let the AI do the stuff that we kind of don't want to do anyway, right? So I think that's where we're seeing huge gains.
Big time. So let's pivot to personal stuff. Like, who is Tony? What got you here? I know certain biographical information about you. You're in Cleveland, Ohio. Somebody, I don't want to say there's a not nice way to describe Cleveland, right? The mistake by the lake or something. I always think of that, but then I always think of Toy Story and the department store, right? What's the name of that place?
Higbee's Christmas story you talking about?
A Christmas Story, not Toy Story, A Christmas Story. Yeah, and where he's in front of the windows looking at all this stuff, and that's the place downtown Cleveland, right?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. That and then the houses here was all filmed here. So here's what's funny. My first company was acquired back in 2008 and it was acquired by a company in Boston. And these were all, Harvard guys, blah, blah, blah. And the guy goes to me, this is no BS, said to me, "Oh, Cleve, yeah, that's where the lake is on fire." I go, "Well, first of all, it was a river that caught fire. Second of all, it was 1971. I wasn't even born yet. I was born in 74. I wasn't even born yet. And by the way, they put it out like immediately, like it's not just raging." So, you get these monikers of things. And today you're kind of seeing it with other places in the United States. People think California, you just walk everywhere and it's just misery and homelessness and drugs. Like I'm just being honest, like, it's not. California's gorgeous and beautiful. Now, obviously, the fires really affected the Palisades in those areas, which is just
Mm.
awful. California is probably the most one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, right? All over California. But you get these things in your head and people just go with it, right? So yeah, born and raised in Cleveland. I did work for Apple in Chicago and California. So but came back to start my first company, which was great and haven't left since.
That's great. Yeah. It's funny. I think what's happening today too, it's interesting when people have these ideas of what the way places are. Like New Yorkers are all rude. Southerners only like cowboys or whatever the weird like generalization is. It's like more and more people, and especially we're all getting polarized, right? So I just hope that that's what I love about, this job. Both of us, we're traveling constantly, seeing people all over the country. I love, that's one thing I love about America. You read the news and you're like, oh my God, what the hell's happening? But you go around and people are just good people. Every place has its, pros and cons and its, interesting parts and things like that. And I think, yeah, it's dangerous to just generalize or, take one or two things. He figures a guy from the Northeast, which I'm originally from, would give you, grief about Cleveland. But let's talk more about, your past. You work for Apple. I've got things here like you've definitely had a really interesting career, doing a lot of investment, a lot of leadership. CRO, president and CRO at different types of companies. What you're bringing like kind of a life's work here to AgileBlue. What made you wanna start AgileBlue?
My business partner and I and co-founder, when we started Agile Blue, we looked and saw a huge hole in the market. He identified this. I was done with my last company. He and I have known each other for 20 years, got together. He's like, I'm thinking of this security operations, autonomous, blah, blah, blah. There's really no huge player in the small to mid market. We really should think about that. And I went back to my house, spent about a month researching it. And he identified this gap and we started this company together in 2019. We went to market in 2020. But the point's this: he identified a gap. And I think any business owner or anybody looking to create a business or grow their business, man, if you can identify that need, if there's that product market fit, or just I see this gap right here, take it. It's like football, right? When that running back sees that gap, it hits it, go on. Hopefully it's an Ohio State running back, by the way.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's interesting about the gap too, right? Because I think business owners, we see the gap. We say we start the company. We start with complete enthusiasm. I relate it to childbirth. If every woman told other women, how difficult childbirth is, like bearing a child, giving birth, there'd be no humans left. And I think it's the same for business owners, entrepreneurs. We're like, yeah, there's a gap and we're going to start that company. If someone tells you the truth, like, do you understand how much pain and suffering? I think you mentioned Musk before. I think he was coined for saying, being an entrepreneur is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. Pretty accurate. So yeah, it's good that you identified the gap and you went for it, even despite the pain. You got to get through the pain, right? And you've been around for 5 years, and it's going strong now. I mean, you're definitely gaining traction in the channel. Anyone I speak to, it's like MDR. Have you heard of Agile Blue? Have you worked with those guys? Definitely a good reputation. So you're doing something right.
Yeah, I think we're just treating people the right way, right? We got a great product that helps too. I think we always have our customers and our partners out ahead of us. So I think that's what's keeping it grounded. And by the way, the channel is a tough place. If you mess up, it's hard to recover. If you just do the right thing, even when things go bad, look, we're all in tech. Tech tech breaks down once in a while, right? There's bugs.
Mhm.
Long as you recover and you know how to treat people who need that support and you get through it, it's easy to keep your reputation going. If not, it's not, right? And that might never come back.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a small world in tech, smaller world in cybersecurity, and an even smaller, tighter world in the channel. So I think you're spot on. Kind of final two questions. One is, do you have a personal story that demonstrates where cybersecurity might have had kind of an impact on your life?
Not necessarily a business one, but I'll give you a personal one. And I'm supposed to be a cyber expert. A few years ago, my cell phone, my phone, had my SIM card swapped. So
Mm.
I was expecting a late gift because obviously I stink at getting Christmas gifts on time. Got a text message says your Amazon order's delayed, and I'm like, it's like, oh man, this is bad. Click on the button. Nothing happened. Next morning, woke up. My phone's not my phone anymore. It's a zombie phone. And that was about a 9-hour ordeal to get life back together again. So that's a little bit different example, but that one crushed me personally because 9 hours, I'm hacked. Now I'm thinking, did people get into my email at my No, everything like that because I have, two-factor, and this was 3-4 years, this is 3.5 years ago now. Still had two-factor. Was isolated to me, but I'll tell you what, getting my life back together again with my phone and everything, that was a nightmare. So it did happen to me, yeah.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, relevant. Luckily, 9 hours is better than 9 days or 9 weeks, which, some people have had, but and it's embarrassing to your point, but been there, done that, where there's been I think I was in Miami 4 years ago, and, it was like some kind of, Wi-Fi that had been hacked, so it was a rogue Wi-Fi access point, and certain things started to happen that I saw, and I caught quickly, but still, you kinda it gives you a little bit of a burn because you're like, "I'm a cyber person. How can this happen to me?" You know? And finally, what do you do outside of work? What's you're definitely very fit, so you're keeping yourself active. Well, what are your hobbies and activities?
I work out every day, so I'm a big workout guy, and that's great, kinda like a clean lifestyle type of thing, but I still enjoy red wine, so I'm not gonna poo-poo that. And so I played college football at Toledo, so Toledo's got a big season ahead of us here, and the Ohio State University. One of my daughters there now. We're season ticket people, champions, national champions. So when it comes to fall, I'm usually out on Saturday on at someone's game. So go Rockets, go Bucks.
I hope that we see you in, the top brackets, but I don't know that my alma mater is gonna be doing much this year. We could be a surprise dark horse, but went to FSU, so we've had some history, but, Ohio State is definitely on top right now, so that's great.
Absolutely. But hey, with all this NIL, with all these players moving,
Ah.
I you're see the same teams there, but then you're going to see a new group of 3 or 4 that are going to pop in and out because they, grabbed a couple guys from the portal. So it is the Wild West right now in college football. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I got mixed feelings. We don't have time to I'd love to have another conversation about that, but NIL, I got mixed feelings about, what that's doing to the sport. So, where can people find you? LinkedIn, Twitter, AgileBlue.
Yeah, AgileBlue.com, LinkedIn, Tony Pietrocola, same thing with Twitter. Twitter, I don't put any profound statements out or anything, but I will retweet good stuff that people should be keeping their eyes on. But LinkedIn seems to be the place these days, but it should be business related. Like people are starting to interweave like personal things. Like I don't need that, guys.
Oh, yeah, yeah, definitely ignoring those posts when they go down that road. That's why I'm not on the other networks. So, thank you, Tony Pietrocola.
Lou, thank you so much. I had a blast. Thank you for having me.
It's been really fun, and thank you to those that are watching and or listening. If you learned something today or laughed, please tell someone about this podcast. Thanks again, Tony. And this has been another exciting episode of Channel Security Secrets. See you next time. That's a wrap for this episode of Channel Security Secrets. Thanks for tuning in. For show notes, guest info, and more episodes, visit us at channelsecuritysecrets.com. Channel Security Secrets is sponsored by Cyber Defense Group. When it comes to protecting your business, don't settle for reactive. Partner with experts who build resilience from the ground up.